Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Reese and I just wanted to give you a nice video just talking about the factory system of the Industrial Revolution that we see during the late 1700s and into the early 1800s. So with that being said, let's get started. So we're going to actually talk about the factory system here, and I want to explain this a little bit more a little bit later. But the question that we're going to try and answer here is what is or how did the factory system revolutionize businesses during the Industrial Revolution? So moving on further with that, we are going to be talking about this right here, all right, specifically this building, all right, with the big smokestacks coming out of it. Now, when it comes to this building here, okay, the big thing that I want you guys to understand or recognize is that all the people sit there and come to the same building to actually work. All right, so this has a couple of different effects on this, and you guys do have somewhat of a similar style of Google slide that you will see in Classroom or attached to this video even. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is the effects it had on society. So the first one is we get pollution, and you guys can kind of see that from the smokestacks here. Not only did these smokestacks cause pollution in the air, all right, it actually, had things stick or had soot stick to sides of buildings and windows, and it made things not very cleanly, all right, or clean to say the least. On top of that, a lot of waste was actually put into the rivers. All right, and that made the water not drinkable, and people actually died from this. And then also on top of that, we get a lot of noise coming from it. So that noise pollution that we talk about today with the big cities and bright lights and everything. Another effect that we have is that cities become overcrowded because people are going to want to go where all the jobs are. And all the jobs are in these cities that had all these factories. And people were competing for jobs for this whole thing. Now, on top of that, when it comes to the factory system, basically what the system is the fact that all the people will come to this one building to make a certain product, okay? And so this actually replaces the old school cottage industry that we see before this time, specifically in London and in other places once the Industrial Revolution gets there. Okay, so to give you kind of an idea of what the cottage industry is, the cottage industry is when people will work from homes, and then whenever they get done with their part, they will actually send that good to the next step or the next house. Okay, so a lot of times things weren't produced very quickly because they had to be transported, and then sometimes it got, it got worse during travel, and so they had to fix it, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the factory system definitely replaces this because all the workers, all the people that are specialized to make that one thing are in the same building. Okay, moving on with that, we get cotton, textiles, and steel industries. All right, I know I had a typo here. So if you are watching this video and you want to get a little bit of extra credit, send me an email of what word I actually misspelled in this. All right, so right there was steel. All right, but there's three major industries that we see. The first of which is cotton. All right, that's pretty self-explanatory. Textiles, which is clothing, as you guys all know, and steel, which is going to be utilized for building stuff. Okay. And then finally, one thing that we will find very, very prevalent is the fact that factory owners literally controlled everything. Okay, it controlled the amount of workers that they had, what was being produced, how fast it was being produced. On top of that, it controlled the wages of workers and so much more. Okay, which is one thing that we're going to be seeing a whole lot of. All right. On top of that, we see working conditions, all right, that are going to change, all right. Two things that we can kind of describe working conditions is the fact that it was both harsh and dangerous, okay. Long hours and unsafe conditions were kind of the theme of this whole entire time period because most workers worked 13, 14, 15-hour days and then went home and just slept, and then they went back to work the very next day. On top of that, there were no safety codes to be put into place. There was no such thing as OSHA at this time. So we saw a lot of really unsafe working conditions where people got either severely injured or sick because of how they were working. Okay, on top of that, because of, long hours and unsafe conditions, the thing is, people didn't really care that much. They didn't care because they're still making a wage. And even though those wages were low, all right, everyone still competed for work. All right, people needed jobs and they needed to support families that they have. All right, so they didn't care how much they weren't making. They just wanted people to actually make stuff, all right, or make money. So this moves on to a type of labor system that we see emerge during this time, which is child labor. All right, child labor becomes very prevalent because children actually needed money to help bring in food and rent and basically be a part of like the working class during this time. Okay, they needed to support their family along with, trying to be a kid. All right, a lot of kids didn't actually get educated at all because they were too busy trying to find work for their family. All right, on top of that, many workers did work in dark mines, or children worked in dark mines or factories because they were so small they could get into smaller places. And in factories, they had smaller hands, so they were able to like tinker around like in like engines and different things that a normal sized hand person couldn't do. All right, so but anyway, we're going to spend a lot more time on child labor later, but I just want to kind of talk about that right now. All right, so with that being said, those are kind of the three things that we see emerge, or three things that are very prevalent to the factory system. And so this leads to a short answer that I want you to try and answer, which is, how did the factory system transform different parts of society, like the cottage industry, family structure, and the boss and worker relationship? All right, once you guys do that on the second slide in this assignment, you will be free to move on to the next thing. If you guys have any questions, please just let me know, and have a great day.